You're listening to Polymatic.media, episode 113 for April 2024. Welcome to the Polymaticast. Hey, John, I saw you do that thing with your eyes, and I was trying not to laugh when I was in the middle of saying that. Killing me, man.
What thing were you talking about?
Well, they can't see it. It's an audio podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. How's it going, man?
Tired. This week was insane.
Yeah.
So we started off with the whole XZ thing happening, and then there was some stuff for work. We were working on ISO certification and 27001, which is a bit of a slog. So, yep. And we're recruiting new developers and stuff, and there was lots of other stuff that's happening.
That's an experience. Either way, being hired as and hiring for, it's always an experience.
Yeah, well, trying to get people to have people on, like, for 2 interviews, like first interview online, and then the second interview you have
in person
in the building, and then you try to either set up like a third interview for like salary, conversations and stuff, and then you just don't even bother responding to you. It's like super bad.
So I can tell you that, that used to be kind of the case, previously, but then pandemic stuff happened and everyone got on board with getting, I wouldn't say modern, but like at least embracing a more modern way of doing it, which is just use tools like Zoom or Teams or.
But like it's not a matter of having a conversation with them. It's like they're not even responding anymore.
Right.
So it's like, it's like, I don't know how they get jobs if you're a company, you don't respond like this. If you respond like this, like you let people hang for like weeks. It's like, okay, well that's rude. And
for companies to do that, or for people to do that?
For people and companies to do that, it's both. It's
rude.
Rude.
companies
so we
do
try
it all
not
the
to.
time.
We try to give people feedback immediately.
I can tell you in the U.S. there was, up until the pandemic where everyone learned their lesson, companies always acted in a behavior like they had leverage over everything. If they ask you for your salary and you don't get overtime in the U.S., if you're salaried, it's built in that way unless there's some kind of stipulation in your, in your offer. Base or your technically would be employment contract, with some of those rare exceptions which don't ever exist. They basically, you working extra hours. And your boss getting on your nerves about how you're not meeting deadlines because what's really happening is they're adding stuff onto your workload and they've never changed the time and they don't actually communicate well with the customer, saying then, hey, you're screwing us and you're out of scope of the contract. Like, not managing that kind of stuff well. It used to be one of those things that if you worked 70 hours in your work week and only getting paid 40, yeah, it's because you're salaried, was sort of the behavior. And everyone was sort of, we all knew it was wrong. We all knew it was not healthy, but that's just the way everything worked out. So going back, leverage. So the company behavior would be, why should we hire you? And someone at my level who is much senior, I go, well, this is what interests me, but why don't you spend a fair amount of time explaining to me why I'm your candidate and why I should work for you? What are your challenges? And you don't say it in that arrogant way, but you say, what are your challenges? How could I be of value to you? Right? Which is, from my perspective, is why should I go work for you? That's kind of where I'm at, right? And companies think, you don't have a choice. We're the hiring one. I go, no, I have a choice. I'm very employable. And then you get the pandemic and everyone had lots of choices. And companies learn their lesson that, like, hey, we can't act this way anymore. What was that?
Not everybody learned their lesson, but...
Well, not everyone learned their lesson. And so there was always this sort of arrogant, how they treated their employees, arrogant from how they paid their employees, arrogancy about hiring and stuff like that. And so the process, I always hated hunting for a job because it was always the worst. It was like, why don't you do a song and dance and tell us why you're so magically special and we should hire you? And, oh, by the way, ultimately we're arrogant, so we're going to lowball you anyways, right? And that was sort of the disposition everywhere, with the exception of coming out of Harvard. They just handed you, half a $500,000 as signing bonus and only 10 or 15 million a year, as you're just sitting around doing nothing, salary. And like, for those like 1% in the world that got those opportunities, the rest of us were not operating that way. You have to work your butt off, through the whole system. And so pandemic happened and lots of people left for better pastures. And so as a result of that, all the companies that had these arrogant dispositions, they quickly had to change their tune. So I know it was a lot of a rant, but but it's a little irritating that when you're on the other end of it and a company ghosts you, I was like, at least give me some feedback. And
but like even the other way around, like the problem we're having is that like there's people we have good conversations with them, and then they have so much opportunity at the moment. It's like, oh well, I can just not respond for like a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you were trying to get hired by April 1st, and okay.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who are just, they immediately respond and stuff. And we've already put in a rule in place that if somebody's like ghosting us, we're just gonna, even if we gave them an offer, if they are ghosting us, we're just not going to respond to them anymore. They're going to do the same thing to them because we can't keep waiting on people if we have to move forward. There's like no way. Like it's kind of their own fault if they don't respond. Like, okay, sure, you had an accident. Okay, that's fine. Your grandma died. Okay, that's a good excuse. But like, we can't stop moving.
Right. We can't wait for you if you aren't coming back.
We tried. We gave you an offer, and then you decided to ghost us. Yeah. Okay, there was a reason for that. We won't, feel bad about it. But like, you got to understand both ways. Like, if it was the other way around, you would still be looking for another job with another company. It's like, it's not like we can't, keep looking while we're waiting for you to respond for 2 weeks. Right?
I will. When looking for a job, there's a lot of people that sort of want me to do contract work because it's just like mining gold for them. And the companies that only want to employ people by contract, there's, in my experience, has always been not a positive. I mean, I can go into the specifics, but I'm not going to. It's never been a positive, and you're certainly not treated like an employee. And even if you are sort of brought into the fold as like they treat you like an employee, there's a couple occasions of the year and go, oh wait, you're a contractor.
You're not one of us.
Yeah, and there's like that little attitude shift that happens, and while I don't take it too personally, I don't really care that much about it. Because I don't really care about going to the Christmas party. I don't care. I'm not going anyways, even if I was an employee. But it's just sort of that attitude that drives me insane. And the fact that it exists at all is kind of annoying. So I don't like taking contract work. If I do, it's really just before I find my next full-time thing. And as much as I've said that, like over 30 years, nearly 30 years of working, I've had very few jobs. So, having to go through these experiences over the wave of the years, like of the, decades is annoying. And sometimes the recruiters get the job openings that aren't publicly announced. Or if they are, they publicly announce it quietly underneath in a drawer locked away, blah, blah, blah. It's like, so they can say they publicly announced it in a place that no one could see it. And they're only giving those job openings to recruiters. Sometimes with recruiters, if you can't conform to what recruiters want from you, they won't help you. And so that's what the U.S. job experience is for like development and IT and engineering and stuff like that. And I want to be an employee. I don't want to be a contractor. I'm not a fan of that. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't like having to look for a job, and I hope I don't have to do it anymore for a while. So
did you hear anything about the XZ stuff?
I did. I heard plenty about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what you get, guys, for not checking your stuff, man.
Well,
there used to be this very early on. There used to be Linux is amazing and better. Open source is amazing and better.
Oh, so that's your point of view. Okay.
No. It's not my point of view. It used to be that way, that like we're amazing because we're not closed loop. Great. But what about security and protection? Oh, it's never a problem. Everyone checks everything. Really? Really? So it used to be this whole thing. Oh, we don't have to do security patches on our stuff in Linux. And I'm like, I don't think that's true at all.
I really don't think that's the way,
But it used to be the attitude. But then when this came along,
I think this world is filled with fanboys for their own environment, and then
yeah,
I think this kind of behavior is not the reality of what it is.
I think it's a lot less in the last 15 years or so, but it used to be really rampant, going back way back.
I think in the last like 10 years we've seen a lot of growth on like the situation, the way Microsoft's handling stuff, and the way the open source community is handling stuff, and like there's lots of opening up on both on like multiple levels, and I think the orientation towards security is good. I think that if it wasn't for that developer being, hey, why is things taking a little bit longer, right?
Yeah.
I think it was even a Microsoft. It was a Microsoft employee. I don't know. I think it was something with PostgreSQL. I think that was a developer for that.
Okay.
And he noticed like it was going a little bit slower, and like he went and looked for like, hey, why is this? What's happening over here?
And that's a value add. You can go look at the source code and really understand if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do stuff like that where I was like, why is this really a problem, right? And I would go pull up the source code, and that's the disadvantage of a closed loop or something. You have to have the person, or I was talking about, coding for a black hole that you can't observe at all. You can only observe what flies out. For things like that, that was always a thing, right? And now we're in a world where most stuff is, but it's also open to security holes and exposure. And as much as everyone raises carries the flag saying, I can look at the source code and I can confirm that it's secure, others will do it too. The reality is most people are not doing it.
Well, that's kind of the problem. There's lots of small projects, and I mean, look at Node stuff, right? There's so many libraries out there. It was somebody who did what was it? The string padding. Like he decided to be an asshole about it and just decided to pull his library.
Yeah,
and that makes it possible. But if you have like these one person projects, like all these projects should not be just one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
It should not be a person. It should be a group of people,
right?
At any chance, right?
And
so somebody may come up with an idea, and then make it open source and whatever, and then together they make stuff. But if there's just one person working on a library, that's always going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was so overworked, and it turned out that there was some bit of social engineering going on. Somebody was actually putting a lot of. I think Wired had a good write up about it, about how there was like a whole campaign of people pushing. Well, it's all fake accounts.
Mm-hmm.
There's like
This one
name plus
person.
number, and then it was like at
Yeah.
gmail.com, and there was like a bunch of them. They
Yeah.
were all like, yeah, why isn't this merged yet? Blah, blah, blah. Why wasn't this merged?
Right.
And I think it was somebody from Netflix. Or was it? No, it was something else. Somebody pushed for it as well. And that would turn out to be a real... it was a payment provider.
Well,
It was a
whoever
payment
this
provider.
this one guy who was putting in the backdoor stuff was basically
Person they suspected was a nation state.
It could be.
Yeah.
The whoever it was it J10 or something like that.
Yeah, they came through a VPN from Singapore.
Yeah. So they were pushing the one individual who was doing most of the contributions and fixes to then fix this, which was also the introduction of the backdoor. So that's what happened.
It all comes back to System D, which is, kind of poetic, really. The thing that a lot of people in the Linux community really don't want anyway. So,
Yeah.
it's a Swiss Army knife with everything attached to it. Like it's the Homer of
But
OS
we
parts.
I mean, like anything, right? We live in a sort of modern civilizations, get improvement of technology that provides a bunch of set of conveniences, and then the original generations that are close to remembering the before times are a little more aware and a little bit more cynical about the use of it for a while, and then you get the next wave of generations that come in, and now everyone is just using the same open source projects without thought because everyone else uses it, so it must be secure. And so that becomes, its own problem, that no one is really evaluating or updating the open source libraries that they use. And you get a lot of people that have gone and gotten their degrees but actively aren't very educated about like their job.
I don't think it's a matter
industry.
of like libraries not being updated. I think there's a lot of development happening. I think there's a bunch of them that are left behind, which are very important for the operating systems. There's a bunch of those people that are like the people that should have retired or moved on to something else, or like donated the library to like an open source foundation or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be maintained. The problem is that people are either I don't want to say on this person because I don't know this person, but like in some cases it might be a bit of pride, I want to keep doing this and blah blah blah. But then there's always the bus factor. Somebody runs into a bus and then suddenly you have to go and fork the project because nobody is maintaining it anymore, right? Or nobody can reach you because some nation state actor took you out with a bus.
Yeah. Where I was going with my sort of commentary on is that I was at a place where before I was hired, they had a problem. And so I heard about this after I was there, and they're like, what questions do you have? And I go, well, how are you going to clean all that stuff up? Well, we kind of cleaned it up. I said, no, you didn't. I see lots of stuff that concerned me. So, and they're like, all right, now that's your project. You can work on that stuff. And so I did. And one of those things was getting sort of tapped, hey, this project uses all these open source things. And so I went through and I put this list together of going in through the OWASP and CWE stuff and saying, okay, at risk, not at risk, we've solved this, we've fixed this, I fixed this, I fixed this, I fixed this. And that was, part of my year on top of everything else. And there's this sort of practicing arrogance because that's the open source project everyone else is using, that it's fine, it's secure, right? We don't need to be diligent about anything. And that's where I was going with it. I've worked with a lot of people that are do their day job and that's it. And they've gotten degrees and they do their day job and that's it. But they don't take any diligent responsibility to own the security concerns, own the fixes, or own the maintenance of solving problems of the past with the patched version of something in the future. And then you have this lingering code listed all over the place. And then it takes a big exploit like this that allows sort of certain individuals to go in and be allowed to go fix things that have been existing in your source code for like decades. I know this because I usually end up being the one tapped to do it. So, or I end up being the one complaining about it until it gets to a point where something's on fire and now it's a fire drill. I was like, all right, well, let me just go put the fixes in.
Well, most people are idiots anyway, so.
Yeah, and unfortunately, not all developers, not all people that hold a title are high quality experts. So, and I'm not trying to suggest that I am. I'm just saying that, like, I've worked with a lot of people. I've hired a lot of people. And just because it's on paper saying they're an expert does not mean they are.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's also part of that recruiting process or hiring process, not recruiting. Recruiting is one thing. Hiring is another thing. And you ask very particular, especially if you are more, I say, expert on a topic and you ask a very specific question, and it's very interesting to see what the answers are. And then you look at the resume and then you hear what their general answers are. And then you ask a very, well, you should be expert on these things based on all this information I got. And then you ask that question and they don't have a good answer.
It can always be like a part of like translation. I think that's something I noticed during the whole ISO certification. Like the way people talk about things can be very different if you're coming from like a certification background. You might talk about
vernacular.
certain things in a different way. Well, if you're coming from a development background, you have to translate these things to some like common language, which is like,
So there's standard terms, industry terms. There are which could also be part of certification, right? Industry terms. There's business terms, and there's business domain vernacular that is inside the company, where your product owner or your client, customer support person.
I'm talking more about like if you have, what's a good example? Like you're talking about certain policy, right? So you're talking about, let's say, commit messages. Commit messages need to be in a specific thing. Then somebody might use a completely different term for that, what a commit message is, right? Or this is not something specific. It's more of like something that I just made up. So somebody might say it is they might translate it to the local language or something like that, right? So and that can be a bit of a pickle, because then you have to convert it back to what you speak, right? Or you have to convert it like from what your background is, and you have to convert it back to what the general term people use for it is. And they might have caught up on that term from another company or from another environment where it's called this. And then, they put that down in their documentation to look at that in other locations. And, they don't have that same insight into like development you or somebody even in the same company, or like it might even be like a different language. It's a different language thing, right? It's not it's not even an English Dutch thing. It might even be like
translation thing. I've always, when I'm writing documentation, especially onboarding or overviewing anything, I put a sort of a definition of terms, right?
Yeah,
I
but
explain what the vernacular is, this is the context, and whatever it is. And yes, there's definitely, I can tell you, there's definitely a translation thing that happens just between general developers and then just the business people, where they're very loose on their usage of terms, or they're very particular about their usage of terms, because marketing plus customer service plus someone with an executive title, whatever, use certain terms, even if they're not accurate to the understanding. And then development goes, I don't know what so-and-so was talking about. And then I have to be in the middle of saying, okay, so you know this? Yeah. You know this? Yeah. When they say this, they really mean this, this, and that. Oh, great. But then what bugs me is when they come back to me 50 other times in the day for the same thing, right? And that's the part, is the people that you work with, they got to have some ownership to understand and learn. Just don't Google me all day about stupid things. And so that's also part of who you hire, right? You want to make sure that you're not just hiring a piece of paper, that you're hiring a person of certain
and then that's why
qualities.
having people that have an open source thing on their GitHub, or something else.
Yeah.
It's very useful because you
Well
can actually see
documented.
what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So you can see what their type of coding is like. But then it comes down to people are doing tests for other companies, and they put
Yeah.
their little test on there, and
I
I'm like,
I will. I'll
why?
say this generically, not specifically to anywhere I've worked recently, but QA has their own language. Like I said, PMs and product owners have their own language, and business has their own language, and executive layers have their own language, and devs have their own language. And so when you are sort of the lead, you spend a lot of time translating the manic, stupid conversations, and then you end up trying to cultivate more exacting language. I want QA to talk to development in their language, not just some kind of abstracted QA language. I don't mean QA standard language. I mean, like, QA came up with some terms because this is how they talk about it.
The flubble flop.
Yeah, exactly.
The dingus.
And then that's who they talk to when they talk to the PMs, because the PMs understand their, like, whatever loose language about stuff. And usually what I'm doing is I use very specific terms, and they go, well, it's this. No, it's not this. And then the first thing I write in my documentation, not every enhancement feature is a bug. Don't call it a bug. I know you know what a bug means, and you know what the bug means, that you're going to get some urgent attention to it. It's not a bug. And here's a definition of terms.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and if you come at us and say it's a bug, and it's really that you guys didn't think about this, and it's really a new enhancement, or it's a feature, complete brand new feature, it's not a bug. So, anyhow.
Anyway, so the XE thing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was so interesting to see, because they had the whole setup was like, somebody was pushing something and they were asking for it to be merged, and why this fixes some problem in my version, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it turned out like all those people were just
Fake.
They were fake, and they were just trying to push it so somebody else could maintain it, and that somebody else got control of the Git repository. And then slowly started replacing email addresses and the website and blah, blah, blah. Because the website was hosted through GitHub. And, that guy was just really overworked. And, I think it brings back the same conversation of, like, that one guy that's in charge of the internet, basically. There's one guy that if he dies, then there's like a bunch of projects that fall over. And I think like it's a hobby, and then it turns out to be a slog, and then somebody's like, okay, here you go, have fun with it, and then somebody else is in charge, and then that somebody turns out to be,
So you say that, and I never met this person, but I had a lot of friends who worked at I don't want to say the company, but let's say they were very key in the history of the internet being public. the fact that the internet period existed. So let's just say that. And I had friends who worked at said company, and then eventually when they got bought up by another company, and very, very key people. And so they were talking about one person, and I would say, "Oh, who's that?" And they're like, "Oh, so long ago in Solaris, whatever, they didn't have a DNS server. So he wrote our DNS server, and we use it, and it's great. The problem is if it breaks, he's on the hook to, that's all he does here is he fixes and enhances the DNS server because he wrote it. And so he fixes it, and it works in, our Unix systems. And like, that's all he does. He doesn't get to do anything else, but we pay him really well to do one thing. And that was like a system that influenced a lot of how DNS protocol stuff worked. I don't know if that's still true anymore. Of course, probably not. But that is very much, that person went away. If someone nuked Virginia, then that one person wouldn't exist anymore, and a whole lot of stuff will start to break.
Yeah, well, that same thing goes for a bunch of other things. I think if Linus Torvalds decides he's finally had enough of Linux, then
Yeah, I saw your video about Git.
Which one?
Oh, maybe I was watching another video. There's a video I saw about how you could maybe that wasn't your video. Maybe I saw that this morning. I'll have to find it. Ignore the comment.
Did you go back to the initial commit of Git?
Yeah, that one.
was tracking itself. Yes.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it somewhere.
Yeah. I saw that recently. I thought it was funny.
Anyway, so there's that, and then what else happened? Gumroad decided to be annoying. They decided to. A lot of my artist friends use Gumroad for their shops to do, to sell their artist packs or whatever, and there's a bunch of models on there and whatever. And they decided to nuke everything that is slightly lewd or anything related to it. So
isn't that all that Gumroad is, really?
Well, that's kind of the thing. It is lewd stuff and tech bros trying to sell crypto.
It's okay.
And
that
courses
maybe that's the
and
case
Notion
now,
courses and
but
other crap. And now it's just Notion courses and other crap.
Right, but wasn't Gumroad the whole thing for artists who draw? Like,
yep.
Basically Onlyfans for like artists who draw.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there was some music stuff on there too, but
okay.
Like they basically, yeah.
It's meant for
and the worst part about it is
the adult
they haven't
creative.
even acknowledged it. They have not publicly sent an email to anybody.
Well, it's being run by a dude, right? Like a dude
and
in
he
his
thinks
company.
he can just make it go away. But the problem is every time. Oh, and they put out. Oh, this is so magical. On the 15th of last month, it came out that this was the problem. That this was happening, and everybody put their stuff up for sale. Like they all put up like 40%, 60%. Everything must go, basically, for cheap. So they could get some money out of it before the PayPal Stripe thing went into effect. Basically said, "Oh well, we're changing everything, and it starts on Saturday." Meanwhile, people are still selling that stuff on Gumroad, so I don't know what the rules are because nobody ever emailed anybody. So that's fun. And then the day after, they said, "Oh, look how great we made $900,000 yesterday for our creators." And I don't know. I haven't seen a tweet that ratioed in a while. It was quite magical, and they took it down because they didn't want to acknowledge it at all. So, yep. And then people have. Every time they tweet now, there's a screenshot below it. Somebody will post a screenshot of that tweet that they got ratioed. So, yeah. So I don't think they're going to be happy for a very long time. And I think the way that platform is going, there's so many like scammers on there right now with all the Notion. There's a bunch of Notion templates and blah blah blah, and how to be a business guru, blah blah blah. There's like all these courses.
Yeah,
And
there's lots of people like that
yeah,
on the internet.
but Gumroad is currently being used as like a platform to sell that. Just
Got
that,
it.
because that's everything that's being sold anymore. And so I don't know. I think those are more at risk of being, refunded because they turn out to be scams, which is what they are. And I'm really suspect about how this went. I think they probably had some sort of problem in the back end that they couldn't tell anybody about. So like the payment providers had them by the genitals and were twisting, so they couldn't do anything about it, and they can't tell anybody about it because they would probably get
So
ended.
there's always payment providers that are they might be a little less than shady, but they are attached to all
there's
things that are sort
There's
of
plenty
adult.
of providers that
Yeah.
could offer the services that PayPal and Stripe are offering.
Yeah.
And Stripe used to be cool with it, so and they were making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They really were.
That's the only reason they were cool with it, because
They could have made like $1 million in a day, easy, if they were to say, okay, we have we have an extra payment provider who can do this. They will take a bit more, commission because there's more risk involved.
mm-hmm.
But, we can still offer this service. But they basically were told, nope, you cannot offer it at all. So people were already suggesting a fork of Gumroad with a different first letter. Yeah, it was bad. It was a bit of a shit show, and Patreon basically did the same thing. They
I never I know that there are I want to say this nicely. I mean, I guess some are really making it a thing, but professional cosplayers that will offer slightly more adult whatever, and they have a Patreon. And
those are usually on OnlyFans and stuff. So
right, okay, but there are some that I don't know how how they respond to that, or how they think about that kind of material on their on Patreon.
And you see,
no
usually,
idea.
on Patreon, usually people have they have a public feed, and then they have
A private one for the
ones
tiers.
for the members.
Yeah.
And then they don't deliver the content on Patreon, which kind of goes around most of the stuff.
Right.
But there's some interest involved who are religious. Let's just call them that.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that it goes on. I definitely know that there's always somebody who hasn't is walking the fine line intentionally, and they have a Patreon for like, $200 a month. But I just always wondered what Patreon is doing with how they were treating that. Where in the case of Gumroad, they said, okay, we don't have a concern, right? And that's why they're a destination for these things.
Well, they had a switch over from PayPal, because PayPal was, they were
right. We're saying, hey,
annoying.
we don't want to take your dirty money anymore, or we want to take your dirty money at a higher commission.
Scammers, or people who are actually delivering content,
right? Yeah.
And apparently scamming is fine. So maybe I should just sell somebody a bridge on Gumroad. I think maybe I could do that.
Yeah, you could send Baltimore one.
You know what? I could start painting bridges, putting those bridges on there. I got a bridge to sell you. I got a bridge to sell you package.
I'll insert a bridge wherever you live. I'll paint it.
Send me
in the
a
background,
picture.
you go into Midjourney and say, use this picture and create a bridge.
Well, that's the thing. There's like people on there that are using those tools to generate shit. And like, actually, and then, the 3D waifu collection, whatever, and they just generate a bunch of shit, and then there's like 20 gigabytes of generated crap that's in a folder in a zip.
Yeah.
And you can get it now for $20.
Yeah.
Or like $200.
I mean, it still takes effort to create that noise, and it also becomes the same thing, right? Where people are just like, hey, let me buy my LUT pack, buy my filters.
Well, I can see more about that. I can see that
there is more value add there.
There's a thing.
But to do that stuff, it does take time. That was my point.
But brushes, filters, that kind of stuff is interesting. Yeah. But a package where somebody tells you how to be a prompt engineer makes me want to vomit.
Right. I agree.
And they're selling it for like, let's see.
And
Gumroad prompt.
Oh, they're selling it on Gumroad, right? Which is the topic point.
Ultimate prompt engineering guide. Let's see, how much is it?
$100, $200,
$20.
$20. They sell 50 of those.
Which is the first one that I found, right? So
yeah.
Midjourney prompts engineering made easy. Let's see, how much is this one? $20. We'll increase to 35 USD. Like these, you're not an artist. You're not creating anything. You're a monkey pushing a button. That's what you are. If you're doing this, you are not an artist. You are not anybody creative. You're not generating. Nothing comes from you. It's like you're like a monkey on a typewriter.
So this is an interesting thing, and I'm not defending it. I'm just sort of exploring this for conversation. So let's talk about how you have
devil's advocate.
TikTok people or even YouTube people that like will show you all the gadgets you need from Amazon, and then they create a list and they send you to that list, and then you can go buy all these kitchen gadgets and things you need for your car, and they get affiliate linking and stuff like that, and their whole thing is to show you how to use these gadgets or how to program Arduino boards to do these things and blah, blah, blah. And oh, by the way, you can find this exact weird part that you can't get anywhere else by going to my shopping list or to my links to buy from affiliation stuff. Are you telling me that if we're taking devil's advocate, right, again, not supporting any of this, but like, are you saying that there is not a lot of work and effort that goes into something like that for people to be profiteering?
That's something completely different. That's something completely different.
But in the person in their brain who's teaching you how to do photography or how to buy my course thing, as far as they're concerned, it's the same thing. It's the most minimal, it's most maximal amount of profit from the most minimal amount of effort in engineering.
If you're telling somebody how to do a certain task, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. But when you're looking at the prompt engineers, I'm specifically focusing on these people that are selling courses on Gumroad, right? So these people are like, there's a bunch of like scammers that do this. They come up with like a course, and they even have AI generated courses now, which is really funny. So they are not teaching you anything. They're not teaching you to be creative.
And you have to spend $20 to find out if it's worth anything.
The thing is, people are doing. They are saying, "Oh no, there was a thing going on with somebody yesterday about pencils being a slur because it's against people who are doing AI art. It's AI phobia. Really, people are doing this.
Really, wow.
What the hell? But like these people who do who make these courses are preying on people who are trying to fit in and not be left behind.
Or or
The
learn.
problem is they're not really learning any skills.
I guess
Because
I would never go
a
to
good
Gumroad
I would be
as
amazed at a good machine learning course where people explain how things work, how this is done, how you would put together something that would understand a prompt, right? That's the kind of level that should be on there, but that's not what's on there. There's just monkey push button, push this button, put these things into this order, and then you get a good result. Which, next
I
LLM
think
that comes out doesn't understand that prompt anymore.
it's one thing for someone to put these things together. It's another thing for them to make some money off of it. I honestly, I would never look at Gumroad or Patreon, go
But
buy my
it's not
thing,
just
go buy
Gumroad,
my
by the way.
stuff that, okay, well, any of these scamming sites. I never look at these things and saying, unfortunately, YouTuber influencers do this stuff
Yes.
with companies that do online course things. And oh, by the way, use my code to get a free thing and whatever.
And
If
usually
they are
these are
truly
related to YouTubers and stuff.
These are
they're
as
selling
well?
it. Yeah.
yeah. So you see a lot of this, go buy my course. I give a lot of stuff away for free, but this is how you support me. And that's just like,
Well, it's a couple of years ago. It used to be like crypto stuff, right?
Okay.
It used to be that, and then they were selling
Right.
this, and then there was a way. I think Folding Ideas had a good video about it, about the book thing, where he had the like writing a book through an LLM or through a ghostwriter, where they had like a scam where you could get ebook money or audiobook money. So you write a book.
Oh, there's a ton
He
of
had a
that.
ghostwriter writing about it, and then they would write for a couple of cents per word, or like a cent per word, or something like that. And then
Yeah,
they would,
when I was going to go into my devil's advocate thing, I was going to bring up books, right,
Yeah.
in the publishing industry. And definitely before more modern day, where everything has a long tail and you can kind of Google everything about whether it's misinformation or not, or there's real truth to it. That's a different story. But people used to sort of scam and con all the time in the traditional ways and in the non-traditional ways. And some of those that eventually made good on their scam became the companies we now know who make products. So, I mean, the world has been like this. It's not anything new. It's just sort of coming into a new place, new format.
but it's kind of funny that what happened to Tumblr, like the kinky people were thrown off, and what came in place was Nazis. Like the kinky people get thrown off Gumroad, and what replace it is scammers. So it's kind of like, it's like how, yeah. So
This is my personal commentary is always going to be about basically the accountants sort of get to defend the reason to do things in a company. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. What it really comes down to is the main concept is, well, how much money did we make? How much money will we make if we allow this? How much money will we make if we allow the other thing?
No.
The other one is more profitable. And sometimes the root of evil is attached to that.
I think this in case of Gumroad and in case of Tumblr, it wasn't a case of like, oh, it is a matter of which will make us more money, because the artists were making a lot of money on there. It was really good to have a place like that, and they were making a bunch of money for Gumroad as well. I guess they were taking like at least like I think 7 or 8% or something like that. So, and that was before the Stripe and PayPal taxes. So and then there's even the taxes. So they were making quite a bit of money on that, and that's going to go away for them, and they had to, because the payment providers were like, oh no, you can't do that anymore. It wasn't like they didn't want it because it wasn't making them money. they couldn't do it anymore because some payment provider had them by the gonads.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different situation than it's dangerous. So and we're making more money off the scams. The scams are all that's left.
Right, because all the artists left.
Yep, they all went to Itch and other places.
Oh God, okay.
So
there's always somebody.
Well, Itch.io is a place for like indie games.
Yeah, I'm
and
aware
they had a bunch of like artists already on there already.
Mm-hmm.
They already switched over from Gumroad because of what they were doing. There's some pretty major artists that they left Gumroad a couple of years ago because of what they were doing anyway. So yeah, but the owner of Gumroad is such a tool. His whole philosophy is having just one person that actually works for the company, which is him. And the rest are contractors. So coming back to the earlier conversation about contractors, yes, it's that kind of situation. So I'm pretty sure that, and they want to go public. So I don't know. And they just got an office in New York. Just the week of. Yep. They're boned. I don't think that Gumroad will be here in a year.
Yeah, I never knew what Gumroad was until I heard you talk about it.
Yeah. Yep.
And
now I have to go. Now I have to go and find a place to have stuff printed on demand and stuff again. Although I did do that before, so I just contacted them again. So
another book. Another book.
No, the one from like a year ago that I need to put back into print. I have to get an ISBN number. Because I was selling it through the Gumroad store, and that kind of sucks. So can't do that anymore.
Sell it through Amazon.
Actually, when I have an ISBN number, I can sell it through Amazon. Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
Amazon will sell it. Yeah,
but then I think Amazon will come up with its AI generated knockoff of your art, and then will promote its own version.
Well, if they do that, then they'll get sued. Because
that's what they've been doing for a lot of. I don't know about the AI generated. I just was throwing that as an example. But they're doing that.
That would be a big problem.
They've been doing that with a lot of people.
I mean, with their products, yes, for the cheaper, like they did that with the diapers or something.
After they finally expose Apple, then they'll probably go finally more official. Well, I think they have a lot of lawsuits against Amazon already.
The thing with did you hear about the Mechanical Turk?
Yeah. I mean, do you think that's
insane?
New?
What?
It's not new.
No, but like it turned out, the whole store thing.
Amazon.
Yeah. That store was like,
well,
what the hell?
Yeah.
It makes sense in retrospect.
I mean, everyone's like, oh, how are they advancing so much with AI? They're not.
They didn't.
Yeah. No, I mean, like the way that the Amazon sort of, it works really well. And this is the difference between Amazon sort of with the voice assistants picking up and figuring out what you're saying, parsing, compared to, let's say, compared to something like Google's, not their Bard or whatever they're calling it now. Google's is a little bit more machine learning based, right? And Amazon's initial sort of, before it gets into the machine learning backend, is it's Markov slots. It's just sort of least common denominator combinations programmed in, which is kind of what the PT in GPT means, but gets you narrows it down much more rapidly, and that's how it determines what you're asking for. Instead of it actually listening, parsing, tokenizing, and understanding. There's no understanding. There is bring it down to a decision tree set of few options, and then create likelihoods. And I mean, that's what machine learning is anyways, but it's not so intelligent. That's why it says, this is what I found on the web, because it's not really, it's just grabbing keywords and throwing it across and then figuring out what a result is and getting tweaked.
It's a glorified Clippy.
Yeah. And so, and that's, I mean, unfortunately, that is actually how GPT is doing it, except that it's a little better at parsing, because it's been given so much decision tree mechanisms, built into it. So Markov slotting, for those people who are now Googling with that, that's kind of how it gets there. And it does it a little better than, other tools do. But it's not what you think it is. They're not comparable. Right. So I had other rants, but I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, let's not go into deep into the thing.
I had other thoughts about it, but I just going to stop there. So it's
just
not what
say,
you think it is.
There's people out there on Twitter that are like, and not just on Twitter, unfortunately, they're also invading the blue sky, that are just, they're so full of themselves, and they call themselves AI artists or AI writers or like authors.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Well,
they're delusional. They actually have no creative bone in their body. They're not able to. Well, maybe the only creative thing in their body is that they're able to delude themselves and others.
I totally get. Look. If you pay your friend for your wedding to use to take pictures, and they are pretty good, crafty with their iPhone, fantastic. That's fine. But if that person starts saying, I'm a photographer. Okay. All right. So, can you tell me what this lens does and what's an aperture and what's ISO? And again, we're living in a digital world compared to old film stock world now. But there's that sort of degree of people say they're a pundit and an expert because they can do well, but not with the traditional tools. So, I'm a little more on the, I wouldn't say elitist, but like people who are real photographers, the understanding is what is the skill. The tool doesn't matter as much. They're going to be amazing if they're great at understanding and having the skill. And it doesn't matter whether it's a thing that's on automatic or not, right? Yeah. But if we turned off the automatic, we got rid of the automatic feature from all smartphones, all devices. How great of a photographer are you really, right? And so that's the differentiator between who's an artist or who uses other tools to create stuff.
There was a thing this morning about a Pink Floyd competition for a video or something. Okay. And they had like the one that won was turned out to be an AI generated thing, and there were other entries in the competition that look really good.
So you know what, Pink Floyd imagery and like DeepMind and like really drug influenced imagery and art. Yeah, AI is a perfect candidate for that stuff.
Well, it makes sense, but like still people are not paying attention anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Gumroad.
This month full of tangents.
Gumroad, go yourself. I'll just have to bleep that out.
Oh, I know you're just the biggest fan of the founder of. Every time I hear Gumroad, I want to go down to the jar of gummies.
Oh, okay.
I just think it's just Gumroad. I was like, I want a gummy.
Yep. Well, what kind of gummy?
Not that kind of gummy. We're talking like gummy bears, or
to get those Pink Floyd type images. Or
no, none of that. That
creative gummies.
What I have down in the kitchen right now is not many left, but the what's the name of that brand? I forget. Is it Troll? I'm not sure, but they make all kinds of they have these gummy peaches. They're really good. I don't have many of them left, but I want some now.
Are they sugar free?
They are not. They are full of sugar.
Oh wow! Okay.
I have to have some of that stuff around because most of my diet doesn't include that stuff, and every once in a while, I'm peckish or something, and there's just something better about having a pancake, right? Without syrup. I don't put syrup on pancakes. and having a pancake, and then I feel better, right?
I want pancakes, man.
Huh? Yeah.
I want pancakes.
Earlier beginning of the week, probably Sunday or something, I was just like, I'm gonna make a bunch of pancakes, and I did. I made a big old stack of pancakes, and then I put them in the fridge, and then through the week, every morning, I was like, I grabbed 3 pancakes, and I buttered them up, and I put them in so I can nuke them at the office, and it was great. I love it. I need to do that tonight. Need a big old stack of pancakes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk about other stuff. I think we have a bunch of links.
We do.
Yeah. Okay, so first one is, what's his face? The title is Apple's $3,500 Nightmare. Polymatic link /1E1. And that was it was kind of like not a counter, but more of like a companion to the one from Casey Neistat.
Yeah.
It even referenced Casey Neistat's video.
Yeah, I saw that.
I thought the whole concept of like I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's a concept of a virtual girlfriend in there, like a bit of a her moment.
Yeah. Long video.
Long video, but it was very entertaining. I laughed quite a bit. Okay. And then you're next. I didn't see this video because it didn't show up while I was looking at the videos this morning because what
was there?
Must have.
Well, yours was Polymatic.link 1E1.
Yeah, I already said that. Yes.
Oh, okay. So this which goes into sort of our ranting topic of Node.js, the documentary. Was it Honeypot? They are a consultancy company that, if you live in other parts of the world and you want to work in Europe, you reach out to them. So if you live in the U.S. and you want to work in Germany or you want to work in the Netherlands, they are sort of a developer company that will help you sort that out, find the options and stuff. But what they have been doing for years now is they've been putting stuff on their YouTube for these documentaries. So this one was a Node.js documentary, which was really interesting because I was sort of around when this was all happening. So it's good I've never looked up what people look like, and it's interesting to see what they actually look like. So Node.js, the documentary, is another good one by this channel, this company, Polymatic.link /1E6.
Okay. Next one is the 3 Body Problem Netflix series trailer, Polymatic link /1E7. I've already watched the entire show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
I don't have Netflix anymore, so I just,
It's worth watching. I got Netflix for a month, and I immediately canceled again because I don't want to keep everything. And then it's nice that they just put everything up for one, so I can just watch it in 1 month. So
okay.
It was pretty good. I liked it. And episode 5 will stay in my memory for quite a bit of time.
Okay.
If you're squeamish, do not watch episode 5.
Okay.
It was absolutely 100% disgusting.
Okay.
So Polymatic link /1E2. I will not recommend anybody watching this show if you're squeamish. Also, the books are very good. So if you're the books also have some parts of this in it, so
right. The one thing I appreciate with you is that at least if you're making a recommendation, there's like some actual literature that's attached that is known to be good, or at least known to be good from your perspective. So it's definitely more informed by something other than, oh, this actress is in it and she's hot, and I'm recommending it because actress used to be this character I really liked in this other series, right? So when you make a recommendation for a show like this, it's usually rooted in something more genuine.
Really famous people in here?
Oh, I don't know.
The guy from Doctor Strange, Wong.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
Benedict
so he's in there,
Wong.
and he's really good. I liked him in this show.
Most people will tell you that he's very good as an actor. Period. So that's kind of why when he becomes more publicly known as an actor because of Doctor Strange. But he's been in other things. He's always been a very good actor. Yeah,
and the guy from there's one guy who is also, I think he's in Game of Thrones, and he was in a bunch of other
Oh,
other
maybe.
stuff.
I haven't seen this, but my brief rant was I have lots of friends who were like hard recommend something hard, and I go, okay, hold up, who's the actress? And they're
Mm.
like, there's not. Who's the actress from what TV show? And they're like, this person. I go, okay, right. Your recommendation might be good, but it also might be biased and based on you have a crush on, the 4 dozen actresses in the world or actors in the world. Sometimes people's reason to push is because the only reason they saw that movie is because it had Brad Pitt in it or, Jennifer Aniston or something like that. So,
I liked Ready Player One. I didn't like the movie.
right. Okay. Yeah. You said.
So
You
there's the
mean the iPhone branding product? I mean, sorry, iPhone. The Apple Vision
Vision
Pro.
One. Yeah.
Vision One. Yeah.
Ready Vision One.
Yeah. So just going along with trailers that I saw a couple recently, but I see you spread it out here. I saw that they're having a new Beetlejuice trailer. I'm likely to see it. I'm not going to go to a movie theater, so if it shows up somewhere later in a year or two to watch it for free, I'll watch it.
So the one thing I did is I skipped these trailers because, one, I didn't want to watch these trailers. Two, I kept getting spam for them on TikTok. So I was already out on them
Oh,
because
you've already
they
seen
were like,
them, yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Also, I whenever something like that showed up, I was like, skip. I don't want to
Got
watch
it.
this.
Okay.
I yeah. So both this one and the next one, I deliberately skipped. I did not want to see them.
So
I've checked out of the whole movie going experience. I've decided to not go to June 2. I'll watch it on streaming when
it comes,
it
yeah.
lands. I don't have to go to the movies for like a several hour movie thing. It might be a spectacle. I don't care. I don't want to go to the movies anymore.
Yeah, all right, well, so that was Polymatic.link 1E7.
Yes, for Beetlejuice.
Okay, so how did they get flipped around? Because I thought he's working on it. Okay, so Ghostbusters. I don't know why, but something encouraged me maybe a couple of weekends ago to I wanted to watch all the Ghostbusters movies, and I did. No. And we won't talk about the third one. The third one doesn't exist, but there is a fourth one, and now there's a fifth one.
Oh, you mean Afterlife? That's the third one.
No, there was something in between the before Afterlife.
No, there isn't. There's just Afterlife.
Exactly.
It doesn't. There's nothing.
Just like
in
the
between.
Crystal Skull for Indiana Jones doesn't exist.
Yeah. What are you talking about? There's a third Indiana Jones movie? There's a fourth.
Yeah. So this is the Frozen Empire, and then it turns out it was like that weekend, and I was like, I didn't even see any advertisements for this thing at all. And I was like, oh, when are they? Maybe they're making another one. And then I saw the advertisement. I was like, oh, wait, I can go see this now. I've yet to go see it in the theater, but there's a new Ghostbusters movie based on the previous one. Third or fourth, depending on your universe of denial.
It's not
trailer
denial
for
if
this
it doesn't
is
exist.
Polymatic.link/1EC. Oh boy, I have lots to say about the Ghostbusters movie that doesn't exist. Still do. After not seeing it a second time. So there you go.
Yeah. So Polymatic.link/1EC for that.
Yep.
So the next one is the first anime I ever watched. I didn't know it was an anime. So Polymatic.link/1E3. In Dutch, it's called Een Vrouwtje Theelepel.
Okay.
And I don't know what it is. I think it's from a French-Japanese studio. Or
yeah, I mean, there's a little overlap of that.
In that time, they were making these shows animated in Japan, and there were lots of studios doing that. And then they were putting translations. They were using the local voice talent to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish they'd not done that. That would have been so much better for people. But
Yeah.
I think in English it's called Mrs. Pepper Pot, Pepper Pot,
Okay.
something like
Doesn't
that.
sound familiar. No.
Yeah. It's a weird. They had a different name for it everywhere.
No.
So Polymatic.1E3. I think it was translated in like 12 languages or something like that. It's insane.
So I saw that you did that for whatever reason. I was like, all right. Now, this might have not been legitimately the first, but it was one of the first that I saw that I liked that eventually I come to know as anime. And for me, this was, in America, we called it Star Blazers, but you know it as Yamato. So Polymatic.link/1E8 was mine, and John's was 1E3, which he did say
Yep.
a moment ago. And so that was one of the first, and Mazinger and Voltron were in the mix there for me. Mazinger Z, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there was also a show about the City of Gold or something like that.
Oh, that's one. Yeah, that's long ago.
But it was like a Japanese, but also a French studio, I think.
Yeah. So the key thing for me is there was a local station that was new. Again, I'm a kid, so a new TV station is not unusual to me because it never happened before. But like the last time that happened was 50 years ago or something prior to me ever existing. But when I was a little kid, there was a local TV station that was getting new content. So it did some of its own programming, but a lot of its cartoons they just couldn't license the ones that were popular in the US. So what they were doing is they were licensing ones from Japan, which was anime. And so they were getting a lot of that stuff. And that's what my friend his father had a VCR, and he saw this one morning waiting to walk to school. And so he figured out how to get the VCR to record it. And so after school, we would sit there and we would watch this anime, this morning programming.
Was it subtitle or was it?
No, it was dubbed. And so Yamato was one of those. Now at that time, though, Yamato was not fresh and new in the 80s. It was basically like reruns that we were getting. So that's why it was cheap anime for them to, it was dubbed. It wasn't great. I mean, that TV show has the worst droning noise in the background, and the acting on it was terrible. But to us as kids, this is much better than the crappy cartoons we were getting. In the US.
In that video you shared, there was lots of sound effects, and they sounded so horrible.
Yeah, that's exactly what that was it. I just Googled, and this was full episode, and I think I just pushed to the first one, but there's a whole playlist attached to that. So, yeah.
Okay. So I got something else. Nova More, it just came out with a new album today, so I didn't know that. So this was apparently part of that. So Polymatic.link/1E4. I'm going to be checking out that new album. I kind of like his stuff. So
yeah, I like that song. So I'm following for now, and I'll check out more.
Yeah, I've shared Nova More before. I used to call it Nova Armor. Because I didn't realize what it was spelling because I'm slightly dyslexic.
Okay. That was Polymatic
1E4.
Yep. And then I just figured I'd throw in two sort of new interesting things with music with regards to me. So Noah Khan, I've heard of, but he's been sort of spinning up on my sort of playlist for Spotify a little more often, and I really do like his tone. It also kind of matches the Novo stuff a little bit. Young Blood was a song of that I thought of as to give an example. So Polymatic.link/1E9, and then just because I know John, you said that you like her stuff, and she's got a new album, Lizzie McAlpine. has literally a new album that she dropped this prior to the weekend. Polymatic.link/1EA. This is to a playlist of all the stuff that she just dropped on YouTube. So if you want to listen through the album, you could do it that way.
Okay. So for the first one, when I heard it, it reminded me of like a what's his face? There's another singer that his voice sounded so familiar.
It does. He sounds very familiar, but then every
He
once in a
sounds
while,
very much like another singer. Basically.
Every once in a while, what I'll do is I'll go and I'll listen to that artist to see if they have more stuff. And there's one artist where I really like the one song that caught my attention, and then I checked out her music, and there were two songs. The one that caught my attention and one other, and the rest of them are just like antithetical to those two songs, and I just don't like it. It's not my vibe. So I'll dig down. That's how I do discovery on artists. Is I'll go listen to their discography and see if I like more of it. And he's one of those that I didn't shy away from listening to the rest of his stuff. So yeah.
There was a thing on TikTok recently with the bread song. All I wanted was a piece of bread.
That I don't know.
No, you don't know? Okay.
Good, and I probably don't need
It's
to.
an earworm. It's like
No, I don't.
annoying.
I hate those
yeah,
dancing hamsters and what was the one with the badgers? Like I hated that early Flash cartoon stuff. I just
that's not it. But like, never mind. Just if you hear it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, next one is XZ is such a mess. Polymatic link/1E5. There's a little bit of an explanation for people who don't know what that was about. Goes into a little bit more detail. I also recommend the Wired article about XZ, and they have like a whole write up about how the social engineering happened and stuff like that. So they really went into depth.
Yeah. If you watch an Node.js thing in front of, you could kind of visualize and hear about a little Node.js history and drama, and you can understand how someone could work some social engineering magic in a community like that to do what would happen with XC. So, okay. If you live in that universe, it can be very easy to do. Okay, so last, I follow Gerald Undone. He really geeks out on particular topics, but one of the little funny things that he does is he'll go to an influencer's, place or setup and sort of jokingly judge their studio setup. I think he did for MKBHD as well. Like, he hits them all up. Anyhow, so he finally got to Adam Savage. And so you get to see sort of, a bit of a Adam's sort of studio tour. Polymatic.link/1EB.
Yeah, I really used to like Adam Savage's stuff, but there were some issues at some point, and that kind of stuck in my brain. And then there was the whole thing with the I think they mentioned it at some point about the creaky thing.
The camera
mount.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. Yeah.
I cannot watch his stuff because of this. Because that creaking is so annoying. It's like a perfect way to make me click away. It's just it's so loud and it's unnecessary. And it's this charm. Yeah, no, this is just laziness. You can do it a little bit better than that.
He talks about it, why he does it. Yeah.
I did. I watched it. And I was like, okay, well, that's still not a good experience. Yeah. So I decided to not test it anymore.
I follow him, but I don't watch everything. It's the same thing with Gerald Undone, and there's a whole lot of these other things. Like, there are particular things that I'm interested occasionally, and I will watch them. And definitely more often than not, I'll watch, a tested video. But there are definitely ones I know that I won't be interested in the content, so I just don't watch it. And that's how I sort of manage my subscription content.
Well, I used to be subscribed, and I was even like a
tested member.
I was a tested member at some point. Yeah. But I decided to stop that because it's just when They used to be like tech oriented, and now it's just making Adam's Cave stuff. And they used to have like
It used to be, yeah. They used to have a little bit more, I guess, when Will was there. They used to have more content than just Adam's stuff.
Yep.
And Adam's sponsored affiliation with whatever. The one thing I like about the guy is he's genuine. There's nothing fake about him. Okay, you say that, but like I don't.
I said nothing.
I don't really see anything fake about him. Like he, if he's doing a sponsored video, he's in the privilege to dictate, and you can see that he's having fun. Even if it's like Mythbusters, whatever, for the job kind of fun. But he's, he puts his all into it. So like there's not a lot of fake, let me act this out. There's none of that, right? It's just, it is who he is. And so I appreciate that about him. And that was the point. So
yeah. Well, that's why I followed Will to his tech pod. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. I'm also a member on there. So.
I didn't follow him over there.
Yeah. It's pretty entertaining. It's a good podcast. It's more of like a two dudes talking situation. Hey, that sounds familiar. So if you're interested in that,
Steve. So there's another podcast for you, Steve.
Yeah. So what else? So I watched it, and I decided to stop watching Tested when they pivoted to just Adam Cave videos, which is fine.
They do some other things, but yeah, the bulk of the content, as far as let me say this. The bulk of the content that is what I'm more interested in compared to the other things. So I spend less time paying attention to their other content. But in my recollection, I think you're probably right. It's mostly Adam stuff.
Yeah. So let me check that. Adam Savage is Tested. Let's see his videos.
Mostly
it's him. Cave.
And they're not all long 40-minute videos. Most of them are like 8 minutes or whatever it is, right?
There's some
11 minute
ones. And then there's some
him
live
responding to feedback, some lives. Then occasional him in working on a particular project. Then occasional something he sells because it's just a passion of something he's working on.
Yes.
He's going to do it anyways.
I would love to watch more. The one thing that bugs the freak out of me is those fucking lights and the camera mount. And I understand it's a problem. You have a solution for it, and it works great for you. The problem is it nukes everybody's ears every time they have a headphones on or something like that.
I don't. I watch these things at my desk. I rarely listen to headphones.
But even on my desk, I have headphones on.
Yeah, also, it's a matter of patience, right? So we're now on this is a tangent I don't want to go on for long. There is...
Tangent number 5,000 fractals, blah, blah, blah.
When you see a video from an influencer, whether they're well established or not, chasing algorithm behavior or what they think the algorithm should be, or one person figured out something and it becomes beneficial, and so therefore everyone sort of copies the behavior. And there's a ton of this. TikTok rewards you for the longer amount of time that your video is watched. So it's the way they consider an engagement, right? That's not getting skipped through. Mm-hmm. And so they look at it from that perspective. And so what people do is they show you something where they're doing something and you think, okay, what am I watching? Why am I watching it? And what's the end? What's the punchline? What's the thing at the end of it that's going to say, oh, it explains why this is interesting. And there are people who recognize that they can trap you into that for the duration of time so that you watch the whole thing. And it turns out that they were just wasting your time the whole time. But if they put out a ton of those videos, it gets elevated and it gets promoted. And then people watch this person shaving a piece of wood that goes on for 3 minutes, and you think
it's the TikTok thing.
Go
watch Fall for Part 2.
We also used to get this with YouTube stuff because they used to also reward, watch time engagement and stuff. So when I see something like that and immediately know they're wasting my time, I just skip, right? I have no patience for it. But then sometimes there is, and this happened with a recent Adam Savage video where it's really long and I'm just getting tired, but I want to sort of get to the result of something. And so he goes on and I skip like 20 minutes in and he's just saying, oh, sorry, I went on that tangent. Let me get to the point. And so there are times where if something annoys me about some of the content that's like that, I'll skip through it a little bit until I get to the meat, right? I don't want all bone. I don't want all skin and bone. I just want meat, right? And so it's not that I have an impatience problem. It's just that I recognize that the content that is created is not always curated or surgically edited. Right? It's sort of built in such a way for you to go on the whole 4-hour ride.
Yeah, so there's the people that are intentionally doing it, where they're just trying to drag you along and get like a payday off it. And then there's the people who are just going on a tangent. And luckily,
like me.
Luckily for you guys, I can tweak that somehow, some points, but like not always. So if there's suddenly a cut and you're here, you know what happened.
Honestly, man, I think I'm good at it. You think I'm bad? Oh man, you should see what used to happen on OG. So I've gotten skills over this. John won't let me ever edit one of these shows. It would be probably a meaty 20 minutes instead of 90.
Well,
and
we're
does.
at
He
90
cuts
now.
Stuff out. He cuts stuff out now, but I'm just saying.
I do cut some stuff, so I try to listen to as much as possible, all the parts, and then eventually I'm like, okay, I need to cut this down a little bit.
You should cut it a lot more. That's what I'm saying, man. If I go missing more often, that's okay. I think everyone's fine.
Talking too much. This time I did talk a little bit more. So
yeah, I encourage it though.
113 episodes in. Okay, so Alan, where can they find you?
Nowhere.
Polymatic.media/Alan for that. Cutting you off. No more links for you. Anyway, there's a bunch of links there. So Polymatic.media/Alan for Alan, Polymatic.media/John for me. For feedback, you can reach the podcast at Polymatic.media, and email box I should really have a look at some point. The website is Polymatic.media, and you can find all our links there too. So hope you liked it, and see you next time. Oh, hope you tune in next time. I messed it up because I've been recording Stardew all day. Whoops.